Hi there! In this lecture, we are going to cover events. What are JavaScript events, or rather HTML events? Well, HTML events are things that happen to HTML elements. When JavaScript is used in HTML pages, JavaScript can react on these events. An HTML event can be something the browser does or something a user does. For example, when an HTML web page has finished loading, or an HTML input field has changed, or an HTML button was clicked. And if you recollect from our initial examples, we used something called as an on-click. Yes, absolutely correct. That's an event. Often, when events happen, you may want to do something. JavaScript lets you execute code when events are detected. HTML allows event handler attributes with JavaScript code to be added to the HTML elements. So you can add events to any of your HTML attributes in this format. So let's say you have some HTML attribute or HTML tag, and then you want to have some event is equals to some JavaScript. Simple, right? So that's the syntax that you will use to execute or to call an event on an HTML tag. Now the beauty of this is for JavaScript, you can have it enclosed either in a double quotes or you can have it enclosed in a single quote. Now let me tell you where it comes very handy. Usually JavaScript executions or actions are not just one line or one word. You may want to have a very big logic executed. In that case, you usually put in a function. So how does that work? So let's say get some JavaScript is your function and you can call it. This will work very well. You can also put a semicolon and it will work too. Now, if you want to pass in some string parameter to this function, you will probably be messing around with the quotes. In that scenario, you usually use the other quote. So let's say if you use single quotes out here, you use a double quote and pass in I am a parameter. So that ways you can make use of single quotes and double quotes to pass in the attributes to JavaScript. Let's see a real world example where we can actually play with this on-click event in our particular HTML JavaScript. So let's quickly write a button. Let's give it an on-click is equal to I want to do a document dot get element by ID, and again now I need to pass demo. You saw how I used a single quote and a double quote to pass in an attribute. Yes, that's what I was talking about. Inner HTML is equal to have a nice day. Let's close this. I cannot do a double quote because this will not be working because I started my JavaScript on click with a double quote. So you see I have to give single quote whenever I use a string, and that's why you can use both the quotes with JavaScript. Let's say click me. Let's close the button. Let's just run with JS and let's click. You can see have a nice day. So on clicks works fantastic. What if I don't want to do this and I want to change the content of this button or probably the label of this button? So what will I do? Instead of doing document.getElement by ID, I'll just replace it with a this. And instead of click me, I was clicked. Well, that's what I need to call in here. So instead of have a nice day, I will say I was clicked. Let's just run with JS. Let's try and click it, and you can see the content got updated. Now coming to the this variable, even like when you see English, this means that you're talking about something in context. Similarly, for HTML, it's already in the context of a button. So the moment you say this, it refers to this particular button. You may have tens and thousands of buttons on your screen, but the moment you have a JavaScript which says this on a particular button, it will only act on that particular button. And button is just an example. You can generalize it to pretty much the entire set of HTML tags. What are the general HTML events that we see day to day? The first, obviously, we saw the on-click. It is very common and we use it very often. The other one is an onChange, which means that whenever some input or some data has changed that the user enters, you can call or fire an event based off it. We also have onMouseOver, which means if the mouse enters a particular div or a section, or let's say if I do an onMouseOver on this button, I can click that. Let's try and do that and see. You see, I was clicked the moment I come in. Now there is another one which says onMouseOut, which means my mouse has gone out. Let's try to put this also in use, and let's revert it back to click me. Let's just quickly copy this is equals to this, and let's say onMouseOut. Run. You see that? You can definitely work with these examples on many HTML attributes. We also have onKeyDown. Well, onKeyDown is actually very used, and especially in search results or when you're searching something. The best example to just open up search, Google search or a Bing or a Yahoo search, and when you start typing in, which is onKeyDown, the search engines start searching and start presenting you with data. So all this happens onKeyDown. And one of the most widely used is onLoad, which is when the page is finished loading. So sometimes you have to wait for the page to load so that the user experience is not hindered, and the moment the page loads, you show or hide certain sections depending on what the conditions are. So that is very commonly used. There's a big list of HTML events, and it will be not wise to discuss it over this video. So I'll attach a document reference that you can go over and see what are the events that are possible. To summarize, event handlers are used to handle and verify user input, user actions, and browser actions. Things that should be done every time a page loads, things that should be done when the page is closed, action that should be performed when the user clicks a button, and the content that should be verified when a user inputs data. And many such activities can be performed using JavaScript event handlers. Now, many different methods can be used to let JavaScript work with events. HTML event attributes can execute JavaScript code directly. HTML event attributes can call JavaScript functions. You can also assign your own event handler functions to HTML elements. You can prevent events from being sent or being handled, and many more.